a lot of action. Since October of 2016, new world records were pretty scarce. To
What's up? Who is here? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to wait for a couple more people to show up and then we'll get started. What? Did I? Oh, yeah. Hold on. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay. Okay. I think I posted the right link now. So we should get an influx of 1 million people. Easily. Easily. Can you hear me okay? Cool. What's up, Burns? Cool. Cool. Yeah, I just copy and pasted the address bar because I am what they call a technological genius. So, but I fixed it. If you all have your copies of this, then you should pull them out Also, I'm not like flexing my dick by saying that I have a hardcover, but I do. But they're not that expensive. I got it for like $9 at Half Price Books. So yeah, you can find the paperback copies for like $2 or $3 though. There's a copy on. There's a bunch of copies on Barnes and Noble that are $1.99. $1.99. I can find a link for you guys. Let's see. Now I don't know how shipping works because again, I'm not a bright man, but I was glancing at Barnes and Noble the other day, and I was looking for any magic book really. Pretty sick. Let's see. I always spell amateur wrong. Always. Like without fail. You'd think I know it because I only preach the book to everybody. Oh, come on, Barnes and Noble. Yeah. I'm not lagging too bad, am I, guys? Also, if you all have any questions throughout, you can stop me and throw me completely off track. That's fine. I don't care. This is America. Ah, we got 2 results. Image not available. There is another Amateur Magician's Handbook by Borrows Moosey. Don't get that one. $1.95. Here it is. I'm clicking on it. All right. Y'all let me know. That's what I found. Oh. So, yeah. Uh-oh, we got another person. I'm not sure who it is, but we do have another human being in. You can reach out, you say hello. If you're an alcoholic, you can say that. You don't have to, though. This isn't one of those. Yeah, nice. Nothing like 6-month-old studs to get the job done. Oh, second person left. Oh, well. All right, we're going to get started. This book right here, if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. I mean, even for it's just a good book. It's just a good read. My copy's a little messy, but that's because I read it a lot. So what I've done throughout this first part starts with page 19, chapter 3. Different editions, I know. But chapter 3 is where we are. I've highlighted and went through And that's basically what we're going to talk about. So he starts out by just like talking about card magic and shit. And it's a good read. It's good. But the only thing that I really highlighted was, and remember the basic rule in hand magic. Yeah, hand magic with cards. That's right. Chapter 3. Well, it might not be chapter 3 in other editions, but in this edition is chapter 3. But yeah, the basic rule of hand magic gently does it, and I can't stress that. I can't stress that enough. Because we're not messing with the cards right now. I can't stress that enough because the more you try to manhandle a deck of cards or a coin, the harder that sleight is going to be for you to perform. Not to mention, when you're really tense, it's hard on your hands, and it's obvious to what you're doing. If I do, you know, a double turnover and I'm holding the cards over as I turn it over, man, you know exactly that something's happening. You don't think that one card is being turned over. You think that I don't know what you think. You just think something's going on. So I think that's a really important piece of advice is that the gentler you are, the better generally you're going to be more successful. The other thing that I want to talk about is a lot of people tend to talk about the structure of how he teaches the sleights and how he teaches the shift before fall shuffling. But I think that, I mean, he says it. He says they are arranged roughly in order of importance, which, I mean, that's kind of subjective, right? But for a lot of these tricks that he talks about, specifically in here, really, the reason that the shift is put so far forward is because it was considered a cornerstone of card magic and still is. What's up, Mushroom? How's it going, man? It's Marusu, I know, but my wife always calls you Mushroom, so I just locked in as Mushroom. But anyways, so the reason that he's ordered it this way, as opposed to Royal Road, mushroom is a drug. That's well, it can be. It can also just be a delectable treat. Also, hello, how's it going? I don't know who that is from the Discord, but I'm gonna guess. Beb, maybe, maybe not, probably not. I don't know who it is. Anyways, hello, how's it going? So yeah, the reason other Asian Dragic? Is it Dragic? Might be Dragic. Dragon Magic. Anyways, so yeah, the reason that he has breaks and then glimpses and then shifts, it's because that is how he considered the sleights to be important. Also, you don't have to read it in order. The reason that I actually like this structure a little bit more than Royal Road is because Royal Road starts by teaching you the overhand shuffle, which I think is important for you to learn terminology, but I don't think it's as important as far as the beginner sleight goes. I think it's actually a little bit tougher to learn. Winter. Is it winter? Bulla backwards? Alub? So, we get started with 1A, the little finger break. Ah, there's Beb. Beb's here. Speak and the devil appears. So, yeah, I mean, you all should be familiar with the little finger break. Yeah, I mean, the main thing that I see that people do incorrectly is that the break will be too big. Yeah. and you'll see it. And that's not very good. You can hide that in various ways. Danny D. Ortiz actually holds most of his brakes with the third finger. He says it's more natural for him. But from a mechanic's grip, the pinky brake's good. It's a good thing. The other thing is I don't tend to keep a brake if I have that cards up here. I'll get an in-jog, and we'll talk about in-jogs later, but I'll get an in-jog so that it can be glass up here, really, and they don't see any spaces on the side. So just a little tip for the little finger brake. The other thing that's important is he explains the spectator peak, which, if you don't know, that's where you hold the cards up to the spectator and you have them stick their thumb in, look at a card, or you riffle the cards. And when you release, you have your pinky brake so that you have a location on the card. And he explains that in detail. He explains the method that a lot of people used to use of the thumb. Yeah, where they stick their thumb out and push open a card. I prefer this and just calling out stop. I don't know why. I think it's just because I learned that way. A good tip, though, is Juan Tamariz talks about something called pictures, mental photos. Yeah, that's what Roberto retitled it. But Juan does talk about this at length, and it's what you want your audience to remember, right? So how can we frame the spectator peak to look more clean? And how you can do that is by, when you demonstrate, you hold the cards in a different grip. And I know that sounds small, but it's actually very helpful. So you hold the cards like this in a very open way, and you say, I'm going to run my fingers down the cards, and you're just going to call out stop. You say, do you got that? You take the cards in a middle grip. You say, you got that. Now, when you put them back, you put them back in that standard position for you to get a break. Yeah. So what the audience hopefully will remember is this picture rather than this picture, right? This is much more open, much more fair. And you can do stuff like, I know Gregory Wilson in Pyrotechnic Pasteboards has a little thing where he gets a step, so he doesn't have to hold a break, and he can leave the cards up here. You don't need any of that, really. As long as you can do a normal little finger break, you're good. But framing it is important, I think. He doesn't talk about that here, but again, that's a little bit newer of a concept. Juan wasn't even, I think he was born, but he wasn't. He hadn't written anything yet. Then he also explains the right thumb break in the little finger break section. So it is important. I mean, I'm sure you all know of the thumb break. Yeah. The problem with a thumb break, though, is that when you have it like back here, you can see that pretty clearly from a mile away, and you can get it pretty minute, but still, there's still going to be a crack there. So a good rule of thumb is I always try to replace my thumb brakes with Erdnase brakes or side jogs. You can also do like a side thumb brake, like this. Yeah, pun not intended. So if you hold it back like this, it's harder to control the dribble though when you do that, and you really have to work on it, and you still have this problem from this side. Yeah. So the Erdnase brake, which he doesn't teach, I don't think. The Erdnase brake is like this. All right. Your hand is covering it a lot more. You have control over the cards, but you basically, how I get into it is I have my pinky brake. I take my third finger and I push the packet up and clip it into Erdnase brake. So if I were to remove my right hand, the cards would look like this. But I have my pinky almost inserted into the brake, my forefingers pressing down. So they don't see this side, and this side looks clean. Yeah? Now you can do your dribble force or your whatever. But thumb brake can be useful. I don't think it's very useful for a dribble force because you can see it pretty clearly. Another solution might be a little bit easier for you is to just angle jog above where you want the brake. And again, people can't see anything from this side, so you can say call stop, and you have it covered on this side as well. The reason that you angle jog it is because you can hold it with your thumb and your pinky really well. Yeah. If you just side jogged it, it's hard to control with your thumb. So that's why we angle jog it. And you don't have to do anything crazy. You can do it pretty small, but yeah, it looks very clean, very open. That's and that's important, right? Because you want to leave no out for the spectator, especially with your card magic. Especially when they know that so many sleights are possible. You want to make it as open, as fair as possible. That's why techniques like the Erdnase brake and angle jogging are so important. So that's 1A. The little finger brake. So 1B, he talks about the glimpse. And I used this glimpse for years. The glimpse is this: you call stop, you take a look at the card, you give them the cards, and you know it's the 9 of clubs. Yeah. All you have to do. What's up, Zero? How's it going? We are on 1B, the glimpse. If you have a copy, if not, just listen to my beautiful voice. So yeah, this is he talks about the spectator beak, and then he gives a sleight. What is this? This is a workshop on a book called The Amateur Magician's Handbook. I forgot the name. So yeah, if you have a copy, great. If not, it's okay. You don't need a copy, but it helps. It helps. You definitely want to read the text. I'm just going to be hitting kind of key points of stuff that I've learned on these basic sleights. If you have any questions, guys, feel free, chime in. Say you're a dickhead. Also, lose the mustache. It's not very fitting. And I'll take into consideration. So yeah, the glimpse, right? So you get a break above the card, and you turn your hand over. You turn your hand over like this, and you take the cards again. And as you take the cards, you can kind of see, because you push this, because you have the break and you step the break over. I don't think I mentioned that, but yeah, you step the break over. So this is called a book step. You step it over so that you can glimpse the index when you take the cards. Thank you. This shirt is one of my favorites. So you take the deck, you glimpse it, and you square up the step as you hand the cards off. I don't like that action. I did it for years, and I didn't think about it for years. But I don't like that action of, why are you turning your hand over? Why do you do that? You check your watch. I mean, you can. That's valid. But just turning your hand over doesn't make any sense. It looks like something could happen. So the object is to try to get rid of that. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just getting to. You can hand the cards off and do a tilt peek, right? So you just hand them off and say, "Hey, can you shuffle?" And you glimpse it that way. You can point like Zero said. You can point, and as you point, you can get a pretty easy look at it. The point is just turning your hand over. It doesn't make sense. So it's a good methodology for getting a glimpse, the step and turning the hand. However, it's not the best. You can also you get a break and then you go, I'm going to put the cards into the box. Yeah, you can do you can get away with murder as long as it's a natural action. Naturally, I'm going to murder them. But yeah, so that is a 1B. That's the glimpse. And like I said, I used that glimpse exactly as it was for years without a problem. I think that if you want the strongest magic that you can get, that you should have a reasoning for something as simple as turning your hand over. That sounds pedantic, and it's really mundane, but I find it fascinating. He does mention a really the thing that I really like, and the reason that people should read this is because he mentions so many good pieces of advice within the larger text. You may have to let a spectator shuffle because he insists, trying to stump you. This is much better than requesting him to shuffle. He will be more impressed when you succeed with your trick on his terms, whereas if you offer to let him shuffle, he will rightly conclude that it makes no difference. I think that is such an important point. You can hand the deck out to be shuffled 30,000 times, but he'll just think that it didn't matter, right? At least so yeah, exactly. That's why that's why I love this book so much. But yeah, if you only do it, it comes back to the Henning Nelms thing, right? If you don't know, in Magic and Showmanship or the Fitzky book, one of the two, magic is much more the ham sandwich. Magic is much more powerful when they request it. So if I said there's a ham sandwich in your pocket, you're going to pull a ham sandwich out of your pocket. You're going to be like, now I got mayo everywhere. This is awful. I hate you. You're an awful person. But if somebody goes, damn, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten all day. You know what I'd really like? Something to eat. And you go, ham sandwich in your pocket. They're going to pull it out and they're going to go, hot damn. I still don't know if this is poisonous. This is unwrapped. There's still mayo, but they're going to be a lot more impressed because the context makes sense. That sort of thought process applies to this notion of letting the spectator shuffle. If they challenge you and say, hey, man, can I make you shuffle? Do you want to shuffle? Rather than them saying, let me shuffle the deck. I want to shuffle the deck. It puts them to rest. And also it doesn't matter, right? But you're not alluding to the fact that it doesn't matter because you kind of think about it and you go, last guy who shuffled my deck, fine, fuck it, shuffle, it's fine, it's cool. But that piece of advice is wonderful. He talks about a trick as easy as spelling your name. I think the most interesting part about this trick is that somebody spells their name, spells Chumley as Chumond Londely. Cholmondely. I realize some of you don't have the book, but for those of you that do and are following along, that is a very, very strange name. But it's a good piece of advice because it's a spelling trick, right? So you should know how to spell your thing before you try to spell it. If somebody spells their name Andy, Andie, that's a lot different than Andy, right? Or an extra E on Brown. And this is a very basic trick. He teaches, the reason that this trick is important is he teaches how to spread the cards from hand to hand. He gives another very good piece of advice for those of you who haven't read a lot of magic books. And studying directions for card tricks, remember that the top of the pack and back are synonymous. So if you're holding cards face up, the top of the pack is still the first face down card, right? It's confusing, but you get used to it. So yeah. The other thing is he talks about jogging. Yeah. See? Chamond Lundley is a mouthful. You're very right, Burns. He talks about a jog spread, which is really cool. That's where you're spreading the cards from hand to hand, and you just like kind of in jog the card that you need and keep going. Instead of cutting at that point, you're delaying that location. So you just cut the cards, and now I have the 10 of hearts. And the basic trick is just a peak counting and a location. So my name is Andy Glass. We'll go with that. You have somebody call out stop. They look at the card, right? You hand it out, glimpsing it. Don't turn your hand over. It's a bad habit. So you hand the pack out, have them glimpse it. In this case, it was like the king of spades, right? If they ask to shuffle, shuffle. If not, you can just shuffle yourself. And now you just go through and you find the king of spades, and then you count their name, right? ANDYOFGOF. I'm fucking retarded. Andy of Glass. That's not right. ANDYGLASS. And then you just down jog this card, right? And you keep going kind of slow because you don't want to like the last thing you want to do is go, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. You want to kind of make the action copacetic. Better learn how to spell. Yeah, that's very right. I should. You want to make the action the same throughout. So you kind of shortly go through. Yeah. And you can count in 2s and 3s, I hope. You don't have to. I mean, obviously you're spelling out a name, but I know my name is 9 letters, so I can just, this is 1. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, down jog. Right? And then you can kind of sit and talk. And whenever you want to, because you have that down jog, and I lost it, so whatever. But because you have that down jog, you can set the deck down and you can talk for an hour, right? When you're finally ready, you pick the deck up, you can give it a cut, and then you spell. Why doesn't the spectator write their name down for you? Because, okay, well, the idea is that you don't know their name until the climax, right? So you're doing it for somebody at a party, and you secretly find out their name, and you do this trick, and you get to this, right? You set the deck down, and you go, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. What was your name? And they tell you it's Chamundali, fucking Vishwanathan, and you're like, I don't know that. We're gonna spell dog. No, but they tell you their name, and then you go, okay, why don't you pick up the deck and spell your name out, right? Because it's about images, right? This whole context of you spreading the cards out, they should forget about this entirely. Yeah. When you set the deck down, that's when the trick begins. Yeah. That's when everything starts. So what they should think about, the 3 kind of images that they'll get, is they think of a card, they shuffle or you shuffle, they take the cards from the table. That's also important. It's a lot different. I know that you guys may think I'm like going through like stuff that doesn't matter, but really, honestly, it does. If you hand the deck to somebody, it's a lot different of an image than if you set the deck down onto the table and they pick the deck up off of the table. 2 very different things, right? Because there's manipulation that can happen with the cards in my hand. There's no manipulation that can happen with the deck on the table. There's nothing, right? That's kind of what makes Invisible Deck so strong, right? Because there's no manipulation that can happen. This is the same concept here. So we're putting that mental image in their head that we have done everything, that nothing has happened. And then they spell their name. They spell the ANDYGLASS, and it's the King of Spades. And it's a miracle. I mean, it's a fucking miracle. It doesn't sound like it, and it's not if you know their name already, and you don't create these moments of impossibility. But if you include these things, it's doing a card trick is like building a piece of woodwork. Yeah, you can build it all you want to, but unless you finish it and detail it, it's gonna look like shit. I mean, it could be a pretty piece of shit, but it's not gonna look like it would if you put a stain on it and clear coated it, put some trim on it. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna look the same at all. So these little tips, putting the deck down, not turning the hand over for no reason, these are all finishing touches that make it a beautiful piece of art rather than just your uncle doing a fucking card trick. But that's spelling. That's any way you spell it, I think you call it. As easy as spelling your name. What a clever title. What a clever title. All right. Next, permanent breaks, the crimp or the bridge. He explains this next because when you have to set a deck down, you can do an in jog, but the angles on an in jog aren't the best, right? They're not great. And you can do a brief, again, not the best. But a crimp, basic corner crimp or a bridge crimp, you can set the cards completely down. If I have a card looked at like the 3 of clubs, I can set the deck down, square it, give it out to shuffle. They can shuffle the cards, right? And I still, from a dead cut, can cut to the crimp, but the card is right above it, right? So you get the fucking idea. I put the crimp in the wrong way. That's important. You don't, if you want to cut to the crimp to the bottom of the deck, typically it's going to go down to the top, up. And yeah, you can have them cut to the bridge. I've done that 1,000 times. The trick to that is putting their hand, moving your hand up to meet their hand. Yeah, that's the basic trick of a bridge crimp, of having them cut to a bridge crimp. Also, if they don't think about it, they can cut to it easy. The bridge crimp that he talks about is this one, which I like. I think it's pretty good. You have that downward thing that makes it easy to cut to. But that's crimp. I don't have a lot of work. I don't have a lot to say about the crimp other than it's going to be really undervalued to you guys until you do it. Until you fucking do it. You can literally hand the cards out to somebody, have them shuffle, and have control over the card. That's incredible. I mean, without spreading through and locating a key card. What a crimp does is it makes a tactile key card. That's another way. That's a way that I like to think about it. Instead of a visual key card, you can feel for it, right? So really practice. I mean, really, really practice cutting at crimps. I think just spending, an hour, couple hours cutting at a crimp, creating a crimp are very important things. I said, so the trick using the crimp is Paul Rossini's location. And I think that this is a fantastic trick because of how simple it is. Because of how easy it is. And I would demo it for you guys, but I think you should read it, honestly. And yeah, we'll call that homework. Paul Rossini's location. But I think it's a great trick when you're first starting out because it really teaches how to find a card in an interesting and entertaining way. I think that's a very important lesson. So, yeah, I apologize for the quietness. I'm just reading a little bit. I'm seeing if I should demo it for you guys. Yeah, yeah. Why not? Why not? So you have the cards dribbled. They call stop. Now look at that card. The 7 of clubs. And it's a very, there's no, don't say this. I'm doing it because there's magicians. There's no breaks, there's no jogs, no crimps, there's no nothing. But if I can do this, I don't even think I can do this. I think this deck, I think this deck is kind of worn. But you have a card selected, right? No breaks, no jogs, no crimps. Yet I can, if I can do this. Maybe not. Nah, it's not gonna work for you guys. I apologize, but basically, um, the card slides out onto your thumb and onto the top of the deck. It's a very entertaining way to locate a card, and with that impossibility, I think it's really good. So that is your guys' homework. We get into the second part, which is the shifts and the passes, and this is where a lot of people take issue with the book. They think, how can you go from fucking breaks and stuff to shifts and passes? This is difficult. This is hard. Here's what I'll say. First of all, I mentioned that in the beginning, its importance. Second of all, it's a good pass. I mean, he says the only good pass is an invisible pass, and that's true. But there's a lot of different ways to make it invisible, right? Me doing a fucking balls hard pass with my eyes being burnt, with the deck being burned, that's a type of pass, yes. But another type of pass is what is it? Prophecy move, right? That's a pass. That's an open pass. So is cutting the deck. That's an open pass as well. But here he doesn't really talk about that. He talks about more mechanical passes, like the two-handed pass, the one-handed pass, and we'll go through. We'll go through. I know some of you guys have had trouble with a shift, so we'll talk about it. I do have a lot of highlighted things. The main importance of a shift, the reason that I think that it's a great move, there's a lot of ways to get around doing the shift, but there isn't really something in card magic. And he says it specifically here. He said there's almost no predicament in card conjuring. Why the fuck conjuring? Guys, I'm a goddamn idiot. That the shift won't help you out of, right? And I think that's very true. If you get any sort of predicament, dialectual difference. Tomato, tomato. That's what I say. So we get to the conventional two-handed shift, and I think that this is the shift that I learned. That I would sit on the bus, I would look at these fucking pictures, I would try it, and I'd try it, and I'd try it, but in essence, you're taking this half and you're putting it underneath. Yeah, you're not taking this half and putting it on top. You're taking the top half and putting it on the bottom, right? I know that sounds pedantic, but it's important mechanically, because what you do, you're not going to be like, hey guys, and your card is on top. Don't do that. I'm just exposing it for you. So what's going to happen is this hand is going to pull this top half down. this thumb acts as a fulcrum to lever that up so that you can complete the shift. So that's what it looks like. Yeah. And I'll try it at speed. I don't have the best pass in the world, but at speed, that's what it looks like, right? So, um, yeah, that's the two-handed shift. There's some tips that he talks about that I think are ubiquitous for all shifts. So he mentions the first step is to learn that position and shown in figure 5 so thoroughly that it becomes a muscular habit. That's learning this thing, learning that. That's, like I said, it's important. It's very important. He talks about some other things too. You still find teachers instructing you to use your thumb and second finger, but yeah, he's talking about the right hand, which I didn't really get into. Some people do teach to use your second finger to hold, but the first finger gives you much better cover. Yeah, if I use the second finger, the cover can be a little bit worse. The first finger lets more of the palm of your hand get involved on top of the deck, covering the cards. Yeah, so that's an important thing. The next step, you straighten your left fingers, but not your thumb, tilting the other half on edge. So he teaches it as a straightening action. For one of the reasons I never went further into learning the pass is because I've been into Magic for 7 months, and that I still need to learn other things. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you have to put your pinky in the break to do the pass. That's it. This pass, anyways. This is the two. There are other passes that get around that. There's the Thompson shift where you don't have any kind of break at all, right? There are free turn passes, right? There are a lot of the Herman shift, which we'll get into. You don't have to really stick your pinky in. There's a lot of different ways to do that. The method that I'm teaching is the classic two-handed pass, which you do have to get your pinky all the way up in there. So, yeah. What was I saying? I don't actually remember. Oh, yeah. The top half. And he teaches it as a straightening action of the fingers. I think of it as a pulling action. Really, they're the same. They're very similar things. If pulling makes you tense, think about it as just straightening the fingers. Because you're doing it. You are. You're not straightening them all the way, right? Like that's not that's not a good idea. But you're straightening them enough to get around that top half. The right hand should never stir during a properly executed shift. It is a cover and pivot only. And that's important for this shift because they're going to follow. Their eyes are going to follow motion, right? So if the right hand moves, they're going to follow that motion. Yeah, there are covers like the jiggle pass where you do move the right hand, but for the classic pass, the idea is they don't see anything. So I guess I'll talk about crossing the gaze now. Crossing the gaze is a term coined by Juan Tamariz. You'll see it a lot as crossing the gaze switch, but that's actually a double crossing the gaze thing. It's pedantic, but it just read, they just listen. But crossing the gaze is the idea that people will follow your eyes, and they don't really follow the motions that happen in between your eyes moving. I give this example because this is the example he gives in the book. But if I take a coin and I put it into my hand, you just watch closely, and the coin will vanish. Yeah. So that's the idea, right? I don't know if I did that well, but the idea is they don't see the coin in the palm of your hand because they're following your eyes, right? They're following what you're doing because this is what's important. So you palm the coin, you look at them, and as you turn your eyes, you put your hand out and you go watch. It vanishes, right? They don't see this coin. And it's not because they aren't looking, they are, but the human brain is really bad at doing two things at once, like looking at two things at once. This is how crossing the gaze works. Two things happen, and the human brain gets half of each, right? How that translates to the pass is they take the card, right? You are looking down at the deck and you patter, right? You raise your eyes and patter. They're looking at both things. A lot of magic text says they look at your eyes. This book says the same thing, but that's not the case. They are actually looking at the cards and they're looking at your eyes as well. So because they're trying to do two things at once, they only get half of each, right? They don't get both of my beautiful blue eyes. They just get one half. But they also don't see my shift, so fuck them. That concept is really important to learning a good invisible shift as well. Rather than just trying to make it fast and invisible, learn crossing the gaze. Pick up the magic way. Is it the magic way? No, it's 5 points. I've been telling you the wrong thing. I'm an idiot. It's 5 points. Yeah, page like 23 or some shit like that. So yeah, he talks about the past for quite a long time. Then he gives tips. Oh man, I was just teasing you. I'm so sorry, Zero. Hold on. Oh man, guys, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt Zero's feelings. I was just teasing him. But I won't be mean. I won't be mean anymore. I apologize. Um, anyways. So yeah, there's tips, right? First, don't let your forefinger stick out. Keep it curled across the far end of the deck. Um, I had this problem for years, and I didn't even realize it. When you do the pass, and I've done it tonight. Yeah, I have to be really conscientious. Conscientious. I got to really look at it because if I don't, then it'll do a little wave thing. Yeah. Yeah. So hello. So what I do, you can put it underneath the deck. Because you can do the pass and the motion of setting the cards down into your hand. The other thing that I talk about, and this is really for bottom palming as well, but you can lock your forefinger and pinky so that they touch, right? And you have to be very careful. You just can't wag that finger, right? But it does help a little bit. I curl it. I tend to curl it underneath, because then I just can't wag it. I can't wag it. So I don't have that problem. But that's the first thing that he says. That's the first tip he gives. He goes, keep your forefinger around the end of the deck, underneath the deck, because if you wag it, they'll know. It's like painting your face. It's like painting your face red. And yeah. Don't lift up with your right hand, pull down with your left. We talked about that. But yeah, yeah. Don't lift up. The deck, the top half is going to the bottom. The bottom half is not going to the top. Don't use your right middle finger to help tilt the lower half. The bend of your left thumb does the whole job. Again, the left thumb is the fulcrum. That's it. That's how the top half moves. Don't blink. There is also, I have a bad habit of this as well. When you blink, you can give yourself up. Also, if you stop breathing, I know that sounds ridiculous, but a lot of people do hold their breath when they're doing a really hard move. Like you'll see people like DPS, and because I do the same thing. They'll take a deep breath and then they'll breathe once they have the card in their palm, and it's hilarious. But it's also very telling that something's happening. So you have to really work on that sort of thing. Aaron Fisher talks about that a lot in the Paper Engine about tension, not giving yourself away through that tension. So, yeah. Don't sway your hands about in a misguided. So there's also another thing that I hate about a lot of Magic books. Another cliche that is not true at all is that the bigger action covers the smaller action. I'll give you an example of why that's not true. Okay, guys. Did you see it? You did? Oh, shit. Right. Don't move your arms about like this. Right? Even if you do a good pass and you move your arms all the time, people are going to think that something's happening. That's all there is to it. That's why the better top changes are ones that are choreographed so that they happen when the hands naturally would meet. Yeah? If you have a contrived way or no reason to pull your hands together, even if the move is invisible, they still look like there's something happens. It's the same with the pass. You don't have to fucking, you don't have to do all that shit. You don't. All you have to do is find the natural cover. Don't sway your hands. Just don't do that. Do crossing the gaze like I told you. The best cover that I know for the shift is so simple that I do not remember having seen any other writer suggested. Just wait until they look away from your hands. So that's easier said than done, of course. I know everybody here has read that in a Magic book. Wait till they look away or say something so they look up. It doesn't work, right? The thing is, you have to direct their attention to something more interesting than what you're doing with the cards. This is Tommy Wonder's idea of misdirection. A lot of people think that misdirection is you're directing their attention away from something, right? So if I had one card in my hand that I wanted to make look like the whole deck, I would direct your attention to the card box so that you wouldn't look at the deck. Yeah? Anything to get away from looking here. But that's not what misdirection is because it doesn't work that way. And you all know because you've done it and it's failed. Misdirection works better when you are directing their attention to something interesting. Focus control. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But Tommy Wonder says the miss and misdirection is bad. It's just direction. You want to put their attention to something that makes sense, that they would be interested in. So you do the pass and you look up and you go, have you ever had sex with a donkey? No? Interesting. Well, take these cards, right? You've done your action, and that's a dumb example. I mean, you can if that fits you. But the example still stands. Yeah, and there's a lot of good stuff on this in the Books of Wonder about direction. Also, Magic by Misdirection by Daryl Fitzke, good example. Juan Tamariz, good example. Crossing the Gaze is a good example of focusing direction. So, he says any short, quick remark draws people's eyes to your face, a fact what you can rely on in emergencies. Again, a quick, short remark saying your card is lost in the deck isn't gonna fucking make them. They don't give a shit. They want to find out what's going on, right? You haven't disarmed them yet. So, and the final piece of advice that I really like that nobody seems to get, It's better to make the shift slowly and quietly than quickly and noisily, right? The death sentence is that noise. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's when those two packets scrape together. It can be invisible from up here, but if those two packets scrape together, and it totally kills this idea where they look up, because if they look up and they hear something, all bets are off. So it's to do the pass slowly and quietly than it is quickly. And we've talked. There are many pass alternatives that you can use while you're learning to pass. It's better to do those than it is to get caught trying to do a pass. And eventually you have to, right? But you should practice it enough first before you take it out in the real world. That's a good rule of thumb for everything, though. But that's the two-handed shift. He gives a trick. I don't recommend this trick. I think it's a good trick. It's definitely a good trick. But the methodology, I think, is just made to highlight the pass, because you do the pass like 5 times. You don't fucking need to. Pass in most any card move should be done 1 time, 2 times at most. Overhand shuffling is a little bit different because the action's so well hidden. The pass, do it once, do it twice. That's it. And they do it 4 times in the course of one routine. So it's an interesting idea. But this is another. And The Card Expert Entertains by Daryl Fitzke. He talks about card tricks. Of course, he's a card expert entertains. But what he talks about that's so fascinating is the idea that when you read a magic trick in a book, that trick isn't going to work as well for you as it did the author, because the method wasn't made for you, right? The method was made for the author, and he wrote it up as a trick. So, and the only reason that I can vouch for this is because this is how I've had the most success. Is you take a trick, you take a plot, and then you make it so it's comfortable for you, so that you can perform it. For the stat pack, 6 cuts, a little much. You can narrow that down very, 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 very much, right? So, that's what Fiske says. He says, make the method your own, and you're going to have something that's going to be far more powerful than anything you do of somebody else's. Anything. Excuse me, I had an itch in the nose. I've been doing a lot of booger sugar, so it's actually it's not booger sugar. I don't mess with that stuff, guys. Who do you think I am? Look at this shirt. Look at this. I'm a professional. Okay, so next, the side steal. All right. The side steal is one of my favorite moves in card magic. I'll start by saying that the side steal is a pass. It's a 1-card pass. You can end up with a card in the palm, on top of the deck, on the bottom of the deck, but it's a 1-card pass. The mechanics of the side steal are also very interesting. I will note, a lot of people will be like, my hands are too small. No. Malini had tiny hands, half the size of my hands. And he used poker-sized cards, and he still did a side steal very well. It's all about direction. So let's talk about the actual mechanics. You can read those yourself. I'll hit on it. You have a card selected, right? And I do it a little bit different than the book. I can go over the book, but I do it just a tiny bit different. I do what's called a delayed side steal, where I push the card out first. I let it sit, and then I finish the action. I don't know why. I just always have. But yeah, the main point is you're using the fingers to push over a card into your palm. Yeah. There are 2 things that can happen. The first thing is the card goes too far over, and that's really that's a practice thing. You get the corner to the pinky and the other corner so it touches the fleshy part of your thumb, and you know it's gone far enough, and now you can pull. The other thing is you can get this very shitty sound. Yeah, that sound. And we just talked about sound is death, right? You don't want sound at all. So how you solve that is you pull the deck away from the card instead of the card away from the deck. That's how I do it, at least. I thought that's how I did it. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. No, yeah. It's also a very loose action, very gentle. But so you pull it away, just like that. Yeah? And there's no sound at all. Also, what I do is I'll turn the cards over like this. This is very flourishy. Don't do this a lot, but I'll do it as an open kind of gesture. The other thing is when you're palming, and this is something that goes all the way. When you're palming, you never want to stick your thumb out the back like that, like you're hitchhiking. It just looks bad. That same piece of advice that I gave about putting your pinky and your forefinger together can help with the side steal as well, because you don't want these knuckles to flash, right? So if I do it like this, you can see those knuckles dropping. Same with bottom dealing. You don't want that, right? So you can get some pretty good cover with the right hand by locking those two fingers together. That's also why I do the delayed, because you can push it over and then drop the hand, talk, and then finish. Yeah. You don't want that either. That's a big problem that you can have, are windows. That's just practice, holding your hands together, palming an object. But that's a side steal. There's a deliberate side steal, which he doesn't talk about in this book. But when you use a side steal to control a card to the top, this is two moves, right? You do the side steal, and then you do a top card replacement, or capping the deck. The deliberate side steal gets rid of one move, so it makes it infinitely better, right? And that's what it looks like. It's in Marlowe on the side steal. Any reason not to curl the right? Not to curl? Oh, I don't curl the right index finger. You can, but I think I always had problem with a window when I pull the card out of extending that. So that's why I always leave my finger out here so that I can just receive the card and not have to move the finger out and in. That's also why I do the delayed as well, so that I can have that. Now I can move the hand forward, drop my hand as I take the card. But yeah, that's a good question. But that's the reason that I don't curl that finger when I do the side steal proper, because I don't want to have to move it. I flash. I don't want to flash. But the deliberate side steal, that's right. The basic mechanics: you push the card over just like you would in a side steal. You take it and you just put it on top deliberately. You have to play with it. The only thing that I can tell you is that sight lines are important. Having the deck, having this edge angled at your spectator's eyes is going to be a very helpful tip. And even yeah. So it's a great move for when you need to side steal the card to the top of the deck. The trick that he uses is you must be wrong. And I have a note in here that it's a great lesson in structure. And I would agree. I mean, I would agree with myself. It is. It's good. Yeah, I think this is the one where the card goes to your pocket. Yeah, so it's a card to pocket, and I really like this thing. It's a very simple trick. It's a trick that everybody does, but reading through it, understanding it, and learning it is very, very, very important. The Herman Pass is a good pass. I don't have a lot of work on it. I don't particularly like the move. It's a good move. I don't like it. I don't like the angles on it. Um, and I don't think the midnight shift is a good answer either. The turnover pass I like a little bit more, but that's not covered here. There's some one-handed shifts. This is the only part of the book. I think he includes it for the sake of completeness, but they're not useful slides. You don't need them. I don't. They're cardistry slides. Yeah, you can find ways to hide them, but you don't need that. You don't need that. Um, and I challenge anyone to find a good way to use the one-handed shift where a two-handed shift wouldn't be just as useful. I'd like to know, honestly. That's not like me like saying like, you can't fucking do it, nerds. I'd like to see. He does explain in 2F. Also, you move the deck away from the palm card or the palm away from the deck when doing the side steal or both. Um, I move the deck away from the palm. There's two reasons. I didn't get into the second reason because I just remembered it. But the second reason is I kind of mentioned it earlier. They follow the moving hand. They follow it, right? There's a good example of this. There's a simple trick called like spot the monkey or something. It is a Tyler Wilson trick. So you set the cards down and you have a card selected. Yeah, in this case, it's that one. Doesn't really matter. But you say I got two mystery cards. Do you know what they are? The Jack of Hearts and the Jack of Diamonds. Yeah? If you put your finger on, they're wishing cards. They wish. What'd you wish for? Oh, your card? How sweet. So that's the reason I give that is because you're just doing a stupid move. There's a very old move where you pull out the in-jog card with the top card. But because you move your hand, you move the deck forward instead of your hand, they follow that, so it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned because they don't see it. They're looking at the Jack of Diamonds. And you put it back and you do the move. But yeah, so there's that. Then we get into forcing, another super important thing. Yeah, the last line of the two-handed shift is still better, though. So I think he just adds it for the sake of completeness. Forcing is not a way to grow fruit out of season. Which would be fucking cool. I mean, let's be honest. I can make you pick a card, or I could fucking grow an orange right now. Fucking cool. Way cooler. But we can't, so we're resorted to forcing a card. He talks about fan forcing. He mentions 202 Methods of Forcing, which is an anime book I highly recommend. Zero, you would like that book a lot. It's got a lot of really, like, you like the crosscut force, and it's got a lot of shit like that, where you're just like, think of a number between 1 and 1. Got it? Look at the card of that number, right? So fan forcing talks about it's really hard. The learned pig project. Well, if it is, I mean, more power to you. Yeah, that's sick. Marusha, if you can find a link, you can drop it. If not, that's okay too. We're not judging. But Fan forcing, I'll let you guys go. I mean, the basics are this. Basics are this. It would be a blank. It wouldn't even be a blank card. It would be. It wouldn't be a card, right? Think about the card. So they would look between here and here, between 1 and 1. So they couldn't even pick up a card because it'd be less than 1. So they'd just be thinking of the space up here, and that wouldn't be a card. I guess blank is the closest thing you can do to that. But it's still a good force. So, yeah. There is one good tip that I can recommend. It seems fairly generally agreed that an atmosphere of total indifference is best calculated to bring success to the force. And this is fan force or classic forcing, because he mentioned the fan force is the classic force. I tell you guys that now. I mean, there are distinctions now, but in earlier literature, making somebody pick a card from a fan was the same as making somebody think of a card from the fan. They're the same ideas, right? So they had the same name. So that nomenclature didn't start until a little bit later. The classic force, I mean. So indifference is important, and I would say go look at some Spanish guys for that. Obviously Danny, but there's a lot of other Woody. There's a lot of other Spanish dudes that have this fantastic air of indifference when they're forcing something. Yeah. So when they force something, also you want to make your forces look like normal. But that's just with anything. I just thought I should mention it. Also, another great piece of advice is if the force fails, he says do a different trick, but there are some other outs. My favorite out is the one that Paul Daniels does. So you have the force card that you're trying to force is the 10 of clubs. Yeah. So you go to force it, and they pick the wrong card out. They pick the ace of hearts. So what Paul Daniels does, what I pretend to do, is I'll look at the card surreptitiously, and I'll go, I'm not supposed to see the card. So why don't you just stick that card somewhere in there, and then you just do a slip force, yeah. And they take a look at the card, and it's now a 10 o'clock. So there's always an out. There's always some way for you to do, and that really applies more for professional setting where you've got card to window set up, but you forced the wrong card, so you have an out. Outs, cautions, and challenges, I think, is the name of a text by Charles Hopkins. It's in here somewhere, because it's an older thing, but we'll get to it. It's a great book for when you fuck up. Thought forces. He gets into. I don't really want to talk about that right now. I mean, we can if somebody's interested. The slip force. A lot of people do that wrong too. When I see people, because I used to do it wrong. You go. Look at the card. Hey, that sound is horrendous. That's the worst sound in the entire world, right? And look at your card. Oh, it's so obvious. And you may not think that people don't hear it. They hear it. They know something's happening. So get your slip quiet. Yeah, that's the first thing that I would say is make it quiet. The other thing is I don't do the slip, but I know there's a method of taking the cards and tapping. You can do that. You have to be careful though that you don't flash, because it's really easy. A lot of people flash. Risk killing is the best way to handle that. So call stop. Yeah. Good look. Yeah. You can do this. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with this method. But it's a lot of people. It's loud. Don't make it loud. You'll kill it. B, don't flash from the front of the sides, which is really easy to do with this force. Which is the reason I don't really care for it. But it's in a lot of textbooks, and so a lot of magicians do it poorly. Everybody's card is the trick that they talk about for the force, which is a great trick. It's one of those tricks that's great to make your own. Yeah. Um, it's a good lesson in structure. I really recommend going through this. The basic effect is a bunch of people pick a card. You find each one of those people's cards. You give them their card. They all name the card, and it's all the same card. And then they're not holding their card at all. It's really good, and it's not that difficult. It's a good trick. Teaches the glide. Great move. He teaches it in the context of the trick. And the glide is just basically, hello. And in that action of me turning the deck down, I've moved the bottom card back. I mean, you can shit on the glide all you want to. You can. But I think it's a great move. Yeah. You can do other things like taking a second, doing a necktie. Man, glide works well. It's just about making it natural, right? I think the reason most people don't like it is because A, they do this stupid thing of pushing the card back with their fingers and then pulling the second card. And like, how fucking dumb do they think people are that they wouldn't pick up that you're moving a card back and then pushing a card forward? I can't think. 2-year-old I have would be like, he's pushing a card back. So you do it with the left fingers as you turn this is a good example of larger action covering the smaller action. I know I said I hate it as a cliche, but when it's well used, right? It's just so many people overuse it. So as you turn your hand over, you pull the card back. Yep. So you can pull the new bottom card out. That's a glide. I love that move. It's a good move. Next, we get to palming. No, it's palming. I'm sure you all know what palming is. This is just a very basic touch on palming. Top palm, good palm. I don't use the method, but it's a good introductory method, pushing the card forward and doing that. The main thing is I just did it. Don't do it. Is that don't stick your thumb out. That looks like you're taking something off the deck. You got windows here too. But when you do it, stick your thumb in the back, stick it in the crotch, and just palm, right? Or stick it on the side. But don't have it wet. That's waggling, That's letting somebody know that you're doing something. So be cool, be easy, be real, be fresh. I use a little bit different of a top palm. I do the bird palm actually, which I won't get into here, but it's just a little subtlety. It's nice. It's in a lot of Vernon stuff, so you basically use the corner as a pivot. Trick that he talks about is Charles Bertram's aces as an example of a trick using the top palm. And I like the structure a lot of tricks being used as examples of sleights. I mean, Royal Road does it too, but I like that structure. I do. I don't think sleights should be practiced without context, because without context, they're just trifles, right? You can just push a card into your palm. What the fuck? Nobody gives a shit, right? I mean, we do because we're card people, but the layman isn't going to give a fuck. It has to have context. The Bertram routine, he runs through a basic equivoke, which we can talk about at a later time. Um, ah, there's a really good a subtlety that's used in here. So in it, you load some cards to somebody's pocket, right? And to get away from the fact that you've loaded, um, he has you like point to other pockets at first. It's a very simple thing, but getting them away from method is really good. So um, this is very basic. I want to touch on this briefly. It's cause and effect. So if I were to cut the cards into four piles, yeah, and somebody were to turn over the four aces, they would think something happened when I cut the cards into four piles, right? So you do some kind of magic gesture or something, and the human brain is very interesting, and then it tends to work backwards one step at a time. So if I'm blanking on a really good example, but if I were to kick a ball and it would break a glass window, the cause would be me kicking the ball, right? That's what the human brain would jump to, is me kicking the ball and it hitting the glass window. Um, so putting something in between me kicking the ball and the glass window would get rid of that cause in the human brain of me kicking the ball. So, like, if it hit the branch and then hit the window, then, I mean, this is a very poor example, and I apologize, but I'm trying to get my point across. Basically, yeah, when you point to other people's pockets, you're extending, you're not putting the cause as you putting your hand in their pocket and dropping some cards off. Right? You're putting time in between that and different actions in between that, so that when they go back and think about it, they don't think, he put his hand in my pocket and then there were cards in my pocket, so he probably put cards into my pocket with his hand. Instead, they think, oh my God, he told me to point to a pocket, wasn't in there, another pocket, wasn't in there. And then he had me point to this pocket, and I reach in, there's three fucking cards. Holy shit, it's magic. So that's a good tip. That's a good subtlety. Oh yeah. So there's some bad stuff in this book too, but not bad in the sense that it's really awful. It's just not good in today's world. There's much better techniques. 4B is a good example. This palm right here, that's a bad palm. Don't do that unless you're on stage and nobody cares. Don't do that palm. Learn the Erdnase method. He teaches that too. Learn that instead. It's much better, much stronger. And if you really do want to get the bottom card into your right hand, we already learned it. It's called the side steal. God damn it. Yeah, Erdnase method. Next, we get to false shuffles, and we're gonna go for a little bit longer, and then it'll be done. I kind of want to get to this section with you guys, and then I'm gonna block some time out for questions. So, but anyways, the false shuffle is the next section. Great section, fantastic section. Learn it. Yeah. A lot of people will say that Expert at the Card Table is a good learning book. And I disagree. I think there are a lot better learning books. The reason that I think a lot of people give this is because the terminology that's mentioned in the beginning of Erdenase is very strong. It's very good. We get something great though. We get it in here. We just get the overhand shuffle part of it. That's all we need. So read those definitions, learn those terms, man. They're important. Even if you don't plan on reading ever again. To be able to talk coherently to another magician about method when it comes to this sort of thing, it helps a lot. It does. It's like openings in chess, right? Openings were made in chess because they're lines, of course, but it also makes it really easier to talk to somebody else who knows about chess. We started off with the Sicilian, then it went to the dragon variation. It's so they know the moves exactly. Rather than, he played C5, then D6. You know what I'm saying? Like that will happen, but it shortcuts it. And these terms are the same way. So then it gets to one of my favorite tricks in the entire book. I think Bulla agrees with me on this. The Zingoni tables, Zingoni, fucking, I don't know. It's a table spread. Basically, you spread deck out. You have 3 people look at a card. They push it in. They don't pull the card out all the way. They push it in, square the deck, you shuffle it, and then you have perfect control over it. It's really neat. It's really neat. I won't demo it here. I think I demoed it on a YouTube video, my method at least. The one thing that I can add is if you know the Gypsy Peak, which is just basically this sort of thing or like this sort of thing. What? Yeah, it's also in ECT. That's right. But Jean Huger and Frederick Browie are a bunch of fucking nerds. Henry Hay, he's a real fucking champ. And Henry Hay's not his real name, but he's also the champ. So, yeah. He teaches some false shuffles. He doesn't really teach the dovetail shuffles that I think should be taught. But he does teach some interesting ones. He does a pretty good job. The way he teaches how to do the regular rifle shuffle is but nobody does that anymore. If you're going to learn a regular rifle shuffle, that's good. Or if you're on the table, you just uppercut what you need, or to the right or to the left. But he does go through the push through and the rifle and the. I think he just goes through the push through. No, he doesn't. That's right. He's got this really stupid thing that he teaches. It's an in the hands. It's not stupid. It's actually really good. But it's an in the hands false rifle shuffle. And it basically looks just like that, right? And it's false. And I don't do it exactly how he does it in the book. I have my own. This is my own variation, but it's not different enough to be not called the Henry Hay shuffle. Basically, it's this. Yeah. There's one thing that you should know about shuffles of this ilk. If you put pressure on corners, for example, we're going to put pressure on this corner and this corner. And if you do that, when you spring the cards, they're actually going to be squared at the short ends, but not square at the long ends. Yeah. So with that knowledge, we can tilt that packet to the side and push it square, which will in-jog that packet. Now we can just hold it like we would normally, give it a cut to the table. But that's basically Henry Hay. That's the only false dovetail shuffle he gets into. He doesn't get into the push through or the strip out. I was wrong. And that's a failure. But to be fair, these moves weren't, I mean, he's teaching moves that he thinks people are going to use. And I don't think the strip through or the push through were very well used moves at the time. But yeah, not that this was a well used move, but he put it in there because it was his and he wanted to. He wanted to move forward. Then he goes to the Hindu shuffle, which is if you're just learning, I think it's good to learn, but I don't think it's taught well here. I don't. I don't like it. Lance Caffrey has a book called The Asian Hustle, and it's on the Hindu shuffle. It's hard to find book, but you can look at the video and you can look at how he holds the cards for a Hindu shuffle, and I think it's a much more natural thing as compared to how he teaches it here, which is basically strip cuts, which you can do on a table. It's a crutch move, and it's a good crutch move until you learn better things, but I think using kick cuts is just as effective as this Western method of Hindu shuffling. Of just cutting the cards like this and asking somebody to call stop and showing them. Next, we get into changes. Talks about a double lift, which is where you lift two cards. Yeah, it is pretty cool when you see people using the Phoenix grip. That's cool. That's really cool. But anyways, we only have a little bit more to go. I think we have the double lift. That's where you lift two cards off of the deck and hold them. As compared to a double turnover, y'all can fight me on this, but I'll win. I'll kill you. I'll kill. Not you, but I can kill. Have you seen the shirt? Anyways, double turnover is where you turn over two cards on the deck. Double lift is where you lift two cards off of the deck. Ambitious card. He mentions it. We're not going to get to that section today, but don't do his ambitious card. Don't listen to his advice either. It's bad. It's bad. Trick isn't bad. It's just thinking has evolved since then. That's the only thing that I think. Top change. This isn't a bad top change. This is the first top change that people learn. This is the one. Yeah. Instead of doing the grip in the same hand, you do it with the middle finger, and that just lets you be quicker about it. Yeah. It teaches a bottom change as well, where you change the top card for the bottom card. Learn the top change. The bottom change isn't as necessary. You can use a jinx change in place of that. The trick that they use for the top change is really good, and you all know it. I guarantee you, if you've done card magic for any length of time, you've done it. It's the basic transposition. But the method here is really good. You have a card looked at, and you show somebody a card, right? You show them the three of clubs, and then you set this card onto the table, and you go, I'm going to take out another card. The 8 of diamonds. All right, this will be my card. Your card's the 3 of clubs. Yeah. And then you snap and... Oh my god. He does it with the top change, but it's the same basic principle. It's good. It's really good. It's good magic. Learn it. The miscall is what's really good, is at miscalling, because they believe you. You know, 3 of clubs. You know, you call it the 8 of diamonds. They have no reason not to believe you. You haven't lied to them. You wouldn't lie. What are you, a magician? Don't lie. Tell the truth. All truth and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Palm change. Good move. Palm change is basically this. You have the 8 of diamonds. Yeah. It's actually the 3 of clubs, because you've side stolen, basically, the card that you need. You just push it over. And you can hold it. Yep. You hold it so you don't have to finish. You don't have to pull it out right away. You don't want this. You don't want the sticky card, so put your thumb there. Then you pull it out. And it's change. That's the palm change. Very old move. Very old move. I think it's Hoffinser, maybe older. Double palm change. This is more of a stage move, but you can use it. It's where you have 4 or 5 cards, packet of cards, right? Hand it off, right? So it's double palm change. You put cards from one palm into another palm. And again, this is more of a stage move. This is not a difficult move by any means, but it's more of a structured type thing. You have to make it make sense. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But it's taught in here, and I think it's valuable. The phony aces. This is actually a funny thing. It's actually a funny trick. I've got some work on it, because I think that the plot is actually hilarious, where you're pretending you're hiding. Yeah, the trick is you show 2 aces, but you're covering the pips of 3s up. That's what it looks like. But then you show the aces, and you're like, "You fucking with me? These are really aces. I wouldn't mess with you." It's a good trick. It's a good trick. Good plot. Then he talks about color changes. This is a bad color change. The clip is what he calls it. This is not a good move unless you're on stage and you're stealing for a fan, right? Close up, this is worthless. Don't do it. Side steal color change. Basically, it's the same move, but the right hand does the left hand's the one that palms the card. The way it's taught, I can't do it this way. I never learned. You can just do the regular side steal. Slap the deck. The far end color change sucks too. Don't do that. There's, like I said, there's some stuff that's pretty dated in here. Snap change, brilliant stuff. Close up, it's difficult because of the angles, but nonetheless, he actually doesn't teach a bad method for it either. The way you hold the card like this, yeah, because it gives it the, obviously from the back it's bad, but holding it down is a really interesting touch. Skip the advice on second and bottom dealing in here. It's not good. There's much better ECT is a much better source for learning a second and bottom deal. This is not a very good one. The trick, though, the trick he uses for second dealing is actually really cool. It's a Nate Leipzig trick where they think of a card. They're dealt a hand of cards. They think of a card. You pick up all the hands without doing anything. You deal out another round, and all other cards in your hand are their selections. It's really neat. Don't listen to their bottom deal advice. Like I said, just expert card technique or Erdnase. Flourishes, cool stuff. Good piece of advice: don't rifle the deck. Riffle. God damn it! I knew I was gonna do that. Have I done that more than once? Fuck. It's riffle. Don't do it too much. That's basically what he says. It all too easily becomes a constant habit, a nervous tick that can drive an audience distracted. Don't fucking do it. A good rule of thumb when you're first learning is if you don't need the cards in your hand, don't put them in your fucking hand, and then you won't be able to riffle it. Fuck it, it's rifle now. That's the Kentucky way. He gets into like back palming, which is not. It's just. I mean, there are some fringe uses for it as far as close-up goes, but it's not altogether very useful. And with that, that's the first chapter of Amateur Magician's Handbook. Some really good stuff in there, some stuff that's not so good, and then some bad stuff. I hope you guys really, really get a kick out of reading it. If you haven't gotten it, it's cheap. It's good. Do we have any questions from the Peanut Gallery? I think this is the first stream I've done where I haven't done any tricks for you guys. Well, examples, but like no real proper tricks, which I can do, but I think it's supposed to be much more of a learning experience today, guys. So what kind of questions do we have? Do we have any questions? Any questions? Questions? Any questions? 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 I'll give it a minute. I can talk while this happens. But I remember when I had my first copy, I duct taped it and like black electric tape so that it would look. For some reason, I thought it would look cooler. It didn't. It was a kick-ass looking. It had an orange. The book was from, I think it was like a first or a second edition. It had thick, glossy paper. It was a beautiful book, and I just fucked it up. I was a kid, man. I didn't care. I wanted the knowledge. I thought it was a great read. But yeah, like I said, you can find copies really cheap online. And hardbacks may be a little bit more expensive, but that if you want a hardback, you're gonna have to pay for it. You gotta pay for it. You gotta pay. I'm not seeing any questions pop up, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and call it today, guys. Thank you so much for coming to our workshop, my workshop. You guys too, but if you have any questions, you can just message me, and I'd be more than happy to answer. Thank you so much, guys. Y'all have a wonderful night.